Hey guys, it's Libby and welcome back to the Bard Cook Club, where we cook classic dishes from Shakespeare's England. Today we're going to be making an herb tart. As always, let's start with the ingredients. The first step, as you can probably hear, is that you want to preheat the oven to 190 degrees Celsius or 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We're then going to take our unbaked pie crust and stick that in there for 5 minutes. Then we're going to move over to the stove. Put one of your burners on low heat and get the biggest pan you have. Add the olive oil and the onions, and then we're going to slowly saute them for about 10 minutes. While our pie bakes and our onion sautés, we're going to do everybody's favorite part of food preparation, vegetable chopping. So I'm going to start with the big boys. Ooh, maybe not quite that many. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this dish. So an herb tart could be either a dinner or a supper dish. So it's a midday meal or an evening meal dish. And technically, an herb in Elizabethan time did not mean what herb means to us now. So in modern English, we would only call these ingredients herbs. An herb was just any sort of baby green. So an herb tart is like a leafy greens tart. And if you filled your entire tart with herbs as we would call them, that's going to be a really intense flavor. So we're adding, the spinach. Arugula doesn't have a mild flavor, but the spinach and the veldslaw, which is the Dutch word for it, is going to even out the flavor a bit and make it edible. Because this dish doesn't include any meat, it would be accessible to all classes, although the nutmeg and the sugar that we're going to add at the end make it a little bit more luxurious. And as I've told you on many other occasions, the Elizabethans didn't really adhere to our concept of sweet and savory being separate. So you're going to get courses that combine sweet and savory in Elizabethan cooking, and you also get dishes that combine sweet and savory. So that's why we've got the vegetables, but also the nutmeg, which you normally associate as a sweet spice, and the ginger and the currants, and I'm using mint, which is a bit of a sweeter spice as well. Let's take a second to make sure our onions are doing okay. And it's also time to take our pie out. So I'm doing the chives now, and as I said, I'm going to leave the flowers right in there. I like to leave them whole because they're pretty. And the mint and oregano I'm going to remove from the stem because they have kind of stalky stems. So the other benefit of this not containing any red meat is that it could be eaten on fish days, which were mandated by law under Queen Elizabeth to bolster the English fishing industry. So red meat was not allowed, though you could eat fish. And they had very strange concepts of what a fish was. So like beaver counted as fish because it lives in the water. And with vegetables, you're certainly safe. And all of these greens are going to cook down, so if you have things with small leaves like the oregano and the mint, you don't necessarily have to chop them. I'm going to give them a little slice up, but they're going to cook down a lot when you saute them. So you don't need to worry about having a massive pile of mint in your mouth when you need it. So now that our onions are lovely and brown, we're going to go ahead and add our ginger and our garlic. There it goes. Keep the burner on low and just let the flavors mingle for another minute. Try to break up the garlic so that you don't get a big mouthful of garlic when you eat it. And now comes the fun part. We're going to turn our burner on to high and we're going to wilt the greens. If you haven't wilted greens before, it's a bit of a delicate art. You don't want to burn them. Normally they have enough moisture that that shouldn't be a problem. If you feel like you have especially dry vegetables, then you might want to be concerned about that. I'm using a very large pan. If you don't have a pan this big, that's okay. Do it in batches, and then once you've done one batch and it's reduced, transfer it to a mixing bowl to add the other ingredients, because you don't want to leave already wilted greens at the bottom of the pan where they're going to overcook. So now we're just gonna add the rest of our ingredients to this pan. I'm gonna start with the cheese because I'm using the pan that I fried in, so it's still quite hot, which means you don't wanna put the egg in first because it's gonna scramble. But if you did transfer to a mixing bowl, then it doesn't really matter. So, the cheese is gonna kind of soften and melt with the heat. Sugar, we're just doing a pinch. Elizabethans didn't really measure things precisely. Okay, a little bit less salt and pepper than you did sugar. And when I'm measuring salt, I never just pour it straight in because it can spill and now your whole dish tastes like salt. I poured it in my hand first. Tiny bit of nutmeg, this was extremely expensive. now I think it should be safe to add the egg, but you do want to keep stirring immediately because you really don't want it to scramble. And that is our pie filling. It reduces a lot. So now we're just going to transfer the filling to the crust. And then this is going to bake for 30 minutes in our preheated oven. Okay, timer's just gone off. Let's go grab our tart. So I've left it to cool for a couple of minutes. You don't have to cool it very long. Nothing is setting. You just don't want to burn your mouth when you eat it, which we get to do now. And it is now, as Shakespeare himself would have said, chow time. I'm kidding, it's fine. So there you have it, an excellent dish for your dinner or supper table on fish days. I hope you've enjoyed this herb tart making experience with me, and I will see you guys next time on the Bard Cook Club.